The anime industry has come a long way from where it was in all aspects, like dubbing, licensing, translation, and subbing. Could you have imagined back in the day that we'd be able to watch anime the same day that it aired in Japan? Of course, the improvements made the anime world better and more convenient for us fans, but with it, we lost what was probably the first exposure to anime for many of us: the dub openings. It's a relic of the past, but to those of us who grew up with it, it hits us with a hearty dose of nostalgia. But whenever I see people talk about the topic of dub openings, it's usually from the perspective of those who live in North America. But what about the rest of the world? We also had our own dub openings, and for us in the Middle East, it wasn't just anime, but cartoons as well. Batman. Batman. Those were my jams as a kid, and whenever someone puts it on nowadays, or even just hums it, you know that I'm belting my heart out. However, with the emergence of streaming services and almost everything moving on there, dub openings have become a lost art that a lot of us miss for all the good it brought us, and the bad. And it's something that's worth thinking about and discussing. And the first thing that comes to my mind nowadays when thinking about dub openings, seeing now that we just get the original opening, is why did we have them in the first place? Well, the most obvious reason, and what's probably the most true, is that back in the day, anime was on TV, not streaming sites. And not just that, but it was marketed as something only children would enjoy. And let's face it, most of us had very short attention spans as kids, and shows had to compete to hold on to it. So while in Japan, anime openings were usually made to set the tone of the show and build up the themes of what you're going to watch, just like dramas, if you show the same thing to kids, you run the risk of the intended message flying right over their heads and miss the point completely, leading to them losing interest and clicking on the remote to change the channel. So instead, in the West, anime openings were treated more as commercials, so everything had to change, not just visually, but musically as well to fit the new opening. And probably the most famous examples of this are Dragon Ball Z, Digimon, and Pokemon.
I wanna be the very best, like no one ever was.
All three of them are iconic openings that to this day, I'd put on just to get hyped. But those were all changed just for the American audience. But what about the rest of the world? Well, while North America had 4Kids and Toonami, in the Middle East, we had Spacetoon, our own anime center.
قناة شباب المستقبل.
So shows like Pokemon, Digimon, and Dragon Ball present all the cases that I know in the world of Arabic dub openings. The case where we use the same opening as Japan, but with more suitable lyrics for us. The case where we use the English opening and just translate the lyrics to Arabic. And finally, the case where we just got a new song. And in the Middle East, openings weren't changed for the sake of marketing, but to be more culturally appropriate. Of course, as here we're probably more conservative, anything that was deemed inappropriate for kids was either heavily censored or just simply removed. And that was exactly what happened with anime like Dragon Ball. The opening was completely changed to deliver a specific cultural message to kids, but that wasn't exactly a bad thing. The Arabic Dragon Ball opening's message was to always have hope no matter how dire the situation seemed, which is a message that Dragon Ball delivers throughout the show to the entire world. It was just changed to be a little less horny, you know? But let's not talk about Arabic censoring now, because that's a whole different topic that I may tackle in the future. But let's just stick with the openings, with all its bangers and its stinkers. And yes, of course there were stinkers. Not every change is going to be a success, even if sometimes they become so bad that it's good, just like this.
If you believe it.
Or this.
Step into the grand tour Dragon Ball GT.
It's the dark side of localization, like the Yu-Gi-Oh censoring and the infamous jelly-filled donuts.
Nothing beats a jelly-filled donut.
But that didn't stop the dub openings until the 2010s came along. That's when dub openings started to die out, and that's due to the unfortunate side effect of anime becoming more and more accepted into the mainstream, and no longer being marketed as just for kids. So no longer was it entirely necessary to edit openings heavily, or now, even change them at all. I will admit that although the dub openings were some of my best memories watching anime, I do prefer anime openings nowadays with all my heart, and do love to listen to them during the day. However, it's not just that, but the advances in the streaming industry meant that companies like 4Kids were no longer able to compete with the conveniences it couldn't afford. Now you can watch what you want, when you want, so you didn't exactly need to be hooked. And with it, the norm changed from dub openings to just using the original opening. But although they died out, they're now replaced with covers. These days, you probably won't hear an English anime opening unless it was by design, just like Ergo Proxy. But if you really want to listen to your favorite anime's openings in English, then the talented cover artists here on YouTube have got you covered. And even some of them got to work on actual anime openings, just like Nate Wants to Battle.
Don't you know I'm unstoppable? Don't even try, 'cause you will fall.
And Pelek. But honestly, I miss the dub openings. It has a special place in my heart, and probably in the hearts of those who grew up with it, but in its place, anime became much easier to watch. It's a sad sacrifice, but if it meant that watching anime became more convenient, then I'll take it any day. I mean, do you want to return back to the age where we would watch an episode on YouTube in 3 parts? It's nice to think about them every now and then, and though it may be a relic of the past, anime dub openings were probably the first thing we saw into the world of anime. So, you know, I miss them. Thank you guys for watching. This has been Anio, and until next time, matane.